Chinese billionaire and founder of the famous Alibaba group, Jack Ma, has not appeared in public for over 2 months after he slammed the Xi Jinping government in China and the state-run banks. Well, not only has the Chinese state clamped down on his businesses, this high-profile businessman, easily China's most famous, one who embraces his celebrity and high visibility, has simply dropped off the map. So we're asking, where is Jack Ma in a country that has no problems in cracking down and disappearing people? Dissent is a dirty word in China. You might be one of the richest men in the world, but if you dare criticize the Communist Party of China, and if you're Chinese, you're doomed. Jack Ma, founder of the online behemoth, the Alibaba group, is mysteriously missing for months. The high-profile billionaire philanthropist has not been seen for more than 2 months after publicly attacking Chinese Communist Party officials. Jack Ma has been known to speak freely and often criticizes the way the Chinese government functions. But when he criticized state-owned banks, the all-powerful Xi Jinping regime could not ignore it any longer. Jack Ma had called for a regulation system which he said was stifling business innovation. He likened China's global banking regulations to an old people's club. Within days, Chinese regulators halted a $37 billion stock debut of Alibaba's financial affiliate Ant Group and launched an anti-monopoly investigation of Ma's e-commerce giant. Dissent has often seen the entire communist machinery come together to crush it, like at Beijing's Tiananmen Square back in 1989. In the Xinjiang province, an estimated 1.5 million Muslim Uyghurs have been detained in secretive re-education camps. And Beijing has been unrelenting in its crackdown on pro-democracy activists in Hong Kong. Even the scientists who blew the whistle on the Wuhan lab for the outbreak of COVID-19 fled China before the authorities could silence her as well. In an ominous new indication of Jack Ma's whereabouts, the state mouthpiece says he is embracing supervision. Nobody knows where he is or what his location is at. Bureau Report, India Today. So where is Jack Ma and what is happening to him? Is there something ominous going on? Is he simply playing it safe after getting some kind of a warning? Is it something far worse that has happened to easily China's most famous billionaire? Let's talk about that. We're putting that on the table here on India First. Joining us live from Beijing is Ainar Tangent, is a political commentator. Also with us is India's foremost China watcher, Brahma Chelani, and one of India's most well-known strategic affairs experts, Sushants. Gentlemen, welcome. We also have with us Geeta Mohan, our foreign affairs editor. Ainar Tangent, it's been a couple of months since Jack Ma quite openly criticized the government and the state-run banks in China. It's something that he's done before. But what is unusual is him simply dropping off the map this time. It's not the first time that he's criticized the government, but it's unusual to see Jack Ma almost practically disappear. And given China's track record in cracking down on dissent, and this definitely was dissent, it doesn't inspire confidence. Where is Jack Ma in your view, Ainar Tangent?
Well, let's just set the record straight. I mean, on October 24th, there was a Bund summit in Shanghai, and the Vice President Wang Qishan, the governor of the Bank of China, and a vice minister finance were there. They led out the opening. Jack Ma spoke third. And it appeared that he, or at least they had the impression, he deliberately made fun of what they were rolling out, their big economic piece. That then translated onto November 2nd. He was asked to come in. He was informed that his record-breaking IPO, $37 billion, was on hold. But this is only part of the story. Prior to that, there had been a number of shots fired across not only Alibaba, but also Tencent,
Yeah.
vows because they had been told that they were under investigation and being fined $50,000 each for three different incidents, one in 14, one in 17, one in 18, all involving anti-competitive practices. Basically, if you're Tencent or Alibaba, you can go to the markets and raise tremendous amounts of money. And then with that money, you can create new monopolies by buying up existing companies. China is not the only place that's looking at this. Also the United States and Europe with Apple, Google, and all the rest. So at this point, Jack Ma is apparently laying low, trying to avoid as much controversy as possible. These stories are not necessarily going to help him.
But it's unusual, Brahmachalani, it's unusual. I mean, he may be laying low and not wanting to add to the controversy, but Jack Ma in the past has never backed off from this kind of thing. He's spoken out quite...
Well, that's not true.
Spoken out quite prominently. He's taken on the government. And like I said, I'm repeating this. What is unusual this time is that he is laying low. And you've also got this kind of ominous suggestion in the People's Daily that he has embraced supervision. I'm not really sure what that means. Brahmachalani, what's your view?
Well, Jack Ma has been the face of the new China. He's the kind of homegrown success that the CCP loves to tout. And his disappearance, whatever his status is, that status is now a mystery. And the crackdown on his empire, which has been directed by the president himself, will have a chilling effect on China's large private sector. Because the CCP seems to believe that large private enterprises are a threat to the party's tight control on the state. Now, Jack Ma is a member of the Chinese Communist Party, and 7 years ago, he publicly justified the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre, calling it the correct decision. His sin, as you pointed out in your introduction, his sin was to publicly criticize China's regulatory system and call for financial reform. Now, that was criticism of President Xi Jinping. And Xi Jinping does not tolerate any kind of dissent. Now, Jack Ma's plight has to be seen in the context of other actions that have happened in 2020. There was a Beijing-based property tycoon who wrote an essay criticizing President Xi Jinping's response to COVID-19. He has been jailed for 18 years. For 18 years for merely writing an essay. And there's also the case of another famous tycoon of Hong Kong, who has twice been arrested in recent weeks, only to be freed by courts. So anybody who is seen by the party as a threat faces the ire of the state.
And there are so many examples of it. You've named just two. There are many more examples of those who've, even obliquely, either suggested reform or said something that isn't to the liking of the Communist Party or the government in China. And, things have happened to them. Either they've been jailed or worse. Sushant Sareen, embracing supervision is the way the People's Daily has described it. That sounds right out of a George Orwell novel. I don't know if you have a view on that, but what do you think is happening to Jack Ma right now? Embracing supervision sounds like, he's a prisoner of some kind.
Shiv, isn't China already something which is right out of, a novel like 1984? The kind of supervision, the Big Brother kind of a thing they do, the kind of profiling they are doing, the kind of, of overwhelming supervision of virtually everybody, the way they target minorities and find out about their location, violate privacy, all sorts of other things. The second point I want to make is that, yes, there are antitrust laws all over the world. Yes, monopolies are discouraged, and monopolies need to be discouraged in capitalistic societies or competitive societies. But I can't remember which American tycoon, whether it was John D. Rockefeller or, in recent inquiries against Google, Microsoft, Apple, I can't imagine the CEO of any of these companies disappearing for 2 months, not being seen, being subjected to all sorts of things which is being speculated about Jack Ma. I wonder if the gentleman who spoke first on your program could enlighten us.
We'll get an answer on that.
We'll
get his view on that.
The third point I want to make is that I think this is very good what has happened, because I think it shows the face of China, as Brahma very correctly pointed out, that here was this iconic figure, almost a legend. He was the showboy for showing what new China was all about, the opportunities that awaited China and Chinese businesses. The sheer arbitrariness with which somebody like him can be picked up and made to disappear.
Good point.
His entire business being virtually smashed to smithereens, or in the process of being done that, or maybe being parceled out to elements within the Communist Party. I think it's a lesson for businessmen, not just in China, but even more for multinational companies, which seem to salivate at the prospect of the Chinese market, that your money is not safe, you are not safe, your investments are not safe.
So you're saying that what has happened with Jack Ma, whatever it is also revelatory and sends out a kind of cautionary, educative message to business persons in general. Einar Tangent, like Sushant Sareen just said, and a lot of people have been saying this on social media as well, that and I'm going to use the word disappearance because we don't know where he is, but the disappearance of Jack Ma is almost like if the US president had abducted a Jack Bezos or a Tim Cook or a Mark Zuckerberg and kept him away for 2 months. Imagine what would have happened if something like that actually happened. So the sense here is it's not about antitrust laws or compliance issues with his companies, but the intolerance against dissent. That is the problem here, Einar.
Well, I guess you guys are not great students of history. You have obviously never heard of Howard Hughes or J. Paul Getty, any of the robber barons who had steel monopolies, railroad monopolies, etc. They were, in fact, broken up, and they were broken up quite violently in some cases. They were forced into it. They didn't voluntarily give up. And that is the U.S.'s history. So, this idea that somehow, if you're wealthy, you should be above the law. That may exist in certain countries, but it doesn't exist in China.
That's not the point here. That's not the point being made.
You keep saying that somebody of his stature, with his money,
Mr. Tangent, with the greatest of respect, you've begun your defense by saying you guys don't know very much about history. I don't think anybody in this hemisphere would say that about Brahma Chelani or Sushant Sareen. They might say it about me. So if you're talking to me, you can say that about me.
The robber barons and Howard Hughes and all the rest of them. They were, in fact, broken up by the U.S. government, and it was needed.
No, but that's not an answer.
These people were not providing services.
That doesn't answer the question I'm asking you. That doesn't answer the question I'm asking you here. There have been antitrust issues in other countries as well. There have been famous antitrust issues with companies like Microsoft and others, Einar Tangent. Bill Gates never got abducted.
Well, on the other hand, Miss Meng from Huawei was. But you have to go back in history. I mean, for some reason, you keep talking about Bill Gates, but you're not talking about the Getty Trusts or any of that. Those were the late 1800s. I don't know if I keep asking if you know your history. That happened during that period of time. Were they actually abducted? No. Were their trusts and their monopolies broken up? Absolutely. So I still go back to this issue that I have the sense that you feel that it's outrageous that somebody who has a lot of money should be subject to the same laws as anybody else.
Not at all. If you think that shows not very much about our understanding of history, then this shows that you haven't understood a very simple language question that has been asked of you. This has nothing to do with someone who's been penalized for corporate actions. That's not what this is about. You don't see this happening in other countries. No, Brahma Chelani, Einar Tangent, ignoring the impoliteness of what he said, he says this is about, a businessman. This is a businessman, this is a business issue, and nobody should, mistake this for anything else. And businessmen are not above the law. Brahma.
No, I didn't say that.
Well,
You're putting words in my
gave the
mouth.
example of this Beijing property tycoon who has been jailed for 18 years merely for writing an essay. He disappeared for several weeks. He was in custody of the state before the state revealed that he was in the custody of the state. So in China, it's routine for people to disappear, to be in the custody of the state before the state reveals the truth. But I think we need to look at the bigger picture. Under Xi Jinping, it's very clear that China is using its military and economic power, both at home and abroad, in a very heavy-handed manner. And we have seen how, under President Xi Jinping, China has transformed Hong Kong fundamentally in a few months, muzzling the pro-democracy movement and imposing a feared security law that has made almost any dissent punishable by prison. Now, this goes to show that Xi Jinping does not tolerate any dissent at home, and also his expansionism has not spared even India. The tense military standoff that we now see along the Himalayan frontier is a result of Xi Jinping's brazen military aggression in Ladakh and territorial encroachments that accompany that aggression.
Yes.
So we are seeing multiple fronts that have been opened by Xi Jinping as part of his expansionism, and is becoming a threat to international security. He's also becoming a threat to China, because what he has done against the Alibaba founder, as I mentioned earlier, will have a chilling effect on the entire private sector of China. It can potentially undermine China's growing economic strength.
Okay, so, when the actions taken by the Chinese government, Sushant Sareen, on Jack Ma were put to our guest from China today, he took the example of Howard Hughes. The suggestion being made is that, this is not a crackdown on dissent. This is an issue of monopolistic trade practices, and the state doesn't consider anyone above the law.
The Chinese state not considering anybody above the law, I think that's rather rich coming from somebody who claims that he's an American. But let me just say one thing. I think Brahma and my knowledge of history is probably better than Mr. Tangen's ability to comprehend what we were saying. Because right in my opening remarks, I said that breaking up monopolies, antitrust laws is par for the course. We even have a competition commission in India which looks at cartelization and tries to break up monopolies. So there is nothing extraordinary about that. But my question was that, yes, when Standard Oil was broken up, since I know my history, and that is why I mentioned John D. Rockefeller, but if Mr. Tangen wanted that I should name each and every big American corporation which was becoming a monopoly, which was broken up subsequently, then maybe we should have another program for that. But that is why I mentioned John D. Rockefeller of Standard Oil, which was broken up. I could mention AT&T, I could mention a range of other companies where monopolies were broken up, but I can't think of anybody or any CEO who was made to disappear. The next point I want to make is that, look, what is happening and the kind of oppressive control which the Chinese Communist Party exercises over Chinese businesses, especially tech companies, is precisely the case to not allow these tech companies or not give them any business in, say, a country like India in any critical infrastructure whatsoever. And for him to link up the vice president of Huawei and her arrest for breaking certain laws, which he was very well aware of, to equate that with the kidnapping of Canadian businessmen who were in China as a kind of a quid pro quo, I think, again, that's what the Chinese do, and that is what we need to be aware of. But from my point of view, I think this is precisely the case because Chinese law itself mandates these companies to spy on behalf of the of the Chinese state.
Okay.
And that is a good enough reason to block their entry into countries like India, and perhaps other countries are taking similar measures. And we should thank President Xi Jinping for taking these kind of steps, so that he only reaffirms the suspicions we already harbor about Chinese tech companies, and the kind of control that the Chinese government exercises over those companies, and the kind of illegalities they will subject those companies to in other countries. So I think we should say thank you to President Xi Jinping.
Okay, you're saying that again, that we should be grateful to for what's going on. Final word from Einar Tangent before I get a word in from our Foreign Affairs editor. Einar, zooming back in on Jack Ma itself, the only thing we've heard about him is a mention in the People's Daily which says he's embracing supervision. Could you enlighten us on what that means? What does embracing supervision mean?
It means when you join the Communist Party, you sign an agreement, a contract with them, that you will be subject to party discipline, which means that you follow party directives, that you follow the policies, etc. So when he broke with that, he, in essence, surrendered himself to the party. And if they're saying that he's embracing supervision, that means he is literally under supervision right now. And that means I don't know if he can leave or not. I would assume he cannot. If in fact that is the position. So that confirms it. So he is basically a prisoner right now. He cannot leave if he wants to. He's under literal supervision. So we've got that categorically. Geeta, what's the view here from the Indian government? Jack Ma is a big global businessman. India has taken many actions against Chinese businesses, not linked in this way. But what are you hearing? Obviously, these are things that the Indian government would be looking at as well.
Well, they are looking at, and we have an entire spectrum of officers and desks that watch what is happening in China. Alibaba and ANT are companies and groups that have investments and have been investing in India and have businesses as well. Some of the companies were in the recent past shunned from continuing their businesses here in India, and that had to do with the fact that, again, like Huawei, Alibaba was also known to be a security. Certain companies were known to be security risks, and that's why we moved away. But the developments in Beijing, the developments coming from China with regards to an entrepreneur missing or going off radar completely is something that concerns not just India but almost all important democracies across the globe. Look at the kind of news that's coming in not just from India, Australia, UK, the United States of America. All countries are right now looking at what China is doing with regards to any entrepreneur dissenting with the rules and policies of Beijing.
This story radiates out across the world. It's not just about China, like you rightly said, Geeta. Well, at least we know that Jack Ma is, for all practical purposes, a prisoner of the Chinese government at this time. Thank you very much to all of you for joining me on this edition of India First. We're taking a very quick break. Much more coming up on the other side. Stay with India Today.
Hi everyone, Preeti Chaudhary here. Hope you like this video. For latest news and analysis, like and subscribe to the India Today YouTube channel. And don't forget to press the bell icon to stay updated. Thank you for watching.